The day my own sister Sarah told me those words, the world didn't stop spinning. The sky didn't fall down. There was no dramatic music. Instead, there was a quiet, suffocating kind of silence. It was the sound of a heart finally admitting defeat, not with a bang, but with a weary sigh. It was just a regular Tuesday afternoon, the kind where the sun felt a little too bright and the air felt a little too cold. I remember standing in my hallway, holding the phone, and looking at the small, dusty photo frame on the side table. It was a picture of Sarah and me when we were little girls, maybe 7 and 10. We were covered in mud from playing in the creek, huge gap-toothed grins on our faces. We were a team then, inseparable. We were the kind of sisters who believed we could face the whole world together, hand in hand. But in that hallway, with those 5 words ringing in my ears, "Don't ask me for help," I realized that little girl, the one who loved me unconditionally, was gone. She had been replaced by a stranger, cloaked in familiarity. It wasn't the words themselves that hurt. It was the chilling lack of warmth, the total absence of the history we shared, the decades of sacrifice I had poured out for her. It was the feeling of being completely and utterly disposable. It's strange how you can spend your whole life defining yourself by how much you give, only to find that the measure of your worth to others is exactly 0 when you finally need something back. For 40 years, I was the one they called. I was the fixer, the listener, the dependable one. When my younger brother Mark needed help paying for college tuition after he lost his scholarship, I was the one who worked the double shifts. When my mother needed round-the-clock care in her final year, I was the one who moved in, quietly sacrificing my own career momentum. And Sarah always needed the most. She was the dreamer, the artist, the one with the big, chaotic heart. She was brilliant, yes, but utterly impractical. She'd jump into projects, relationships, and even cities without a plan, and inevitably, the call would come. "Anna, I messed up. Can you just..." And I always did. I always dropped everything. This isn't a story about anger. It's a story about a quiet, profound realization. It's about the subtle, slow poison that comes from loving people who only know how to take. It's about the loneliness that sets in when you finally stop being useful. I grew up believing that family was a bank of unconditional love. You deposit kindness, you deposit loyalty, you deposit help, and when your own storm hits, you make a withdrawal. It was a simple mathematical equation in my mind. The more you give, the more secure you are. I thought I had built a fortress of love that would protect me forever. My life has always been one of steady, reliable motion. I'm Anna. I married late to a gentle man named Thomas, a carpenter with kind eyes and calloused hands. We built a good, simple life. We didn't have much money, but we had stability. We had a small, comfortable home that always smelled faintly of cinnamon and old wood. We had one son, Michael, who was quiet and studious, just like his father. We were happy, a quiet, unassuming kind of happy. The family depended on that stability. My parents knew that if they ever had a problem, Anna had a clear head and a plan. Mark knew that if his car broke down or he needed a reference, Anna would be the first to answer the phone. And Sarah. Well, Sarah knew that Anna's spare room and Anna's spare cash were always available. I didn't mind it. Honestly, I liked being needed. It gave my life a sense of purpose beyond my simple 9-to-5 job at the library. Being needed felt like love, and that was the core mistake I made. I confused service with affection. I confused being essential with being cherished. Let me tell you about Sarah, because she is the center of this quiet hurricane. Sarah is 5 years younger than me. She was always the favorite, though my parents tried their best not to show it. She had that spark, that vibrant, captivating energy. She was the one who could walk into a room and instantly command attention. I was the shadow, the quiet, competent backdrop that made her shine. When she was 22, she decided she wanted to be a professional photographer. A few months in, she ran out of money for equipment and rent on her studio apartment. She called me tearful and dramatic, saying she was going to have to give up on her dream. My heart broke for her. It felt like a crisis. Thomas and I were saving for a new roof at the time, but the old one could probably hold out one more winter. So, I took the $5,000 we had saved and wired it to her the next morning. I didn't hesitate. I didn't even tell Thomas until after the fact, and he just sighed, his usual patient sigh, and said, "Well, she's your sister. Anna, just make sure she pays you back." She never did. Not a word about it, even years later. When I asked her gently, 3 years after the fact, she looked genuinely bewildered. "Oh, that? I thought that was just a gift, Anna. You know how much I needed it." And I let it go. I told myself it was fine. The new roof could wait. Family was more important than shingles. It was a pattern that repeated itself over and over. When her first marriage imploded, I took her in for 6 months. She occupied my living room, drank my expensive coffee, and left a creative, beautiful mess everywhere she went. I cleaned up after her, cooked for her, and listened to the same tragic story every night. I comforted her, never once pointing out that her own impulsive choices had led her there. When she finally moved out, the house felt strangely quiet, and I realized I was exhausted, but I was also proud. I had helped her through her darkest time. That felt like love. It wasn't just Sarah, though. It was the whole ecosystem of my family. When my son, Michael, was 12, my brother Mark called me in a panic. He was going through a messy divorce and needed a lawyer. The retainer fee was astronomical. He begged me, not for money, but to co-sign a loan. The bank was worried about his unstable income. I knew the risk was immense. Thomas warned me, his voice grave. "Anna, if he defaults, that is our house. Everything." But Mark was desperate. He sounded broken. I remembered being kids, and how he always protected me from the bigger kids on the playground. That debt of childhood loyalty weighed heavily. I saw his face, not the reckless adult, but the small boy who needed his big sister. I signed the papers. I didn't tell Thomas until after the fact, again. He was deeply disappointed, not angry, just disappointed. He said, "You always prioritize their drama, Anna, over our peace." That sentence hurt more than any fight. Mark didn't default on the loan, thankfully, but it hung over us for years. It was a constant shadow, a weight I carried every day. But Mark had his life back, and I could tell myself, I did the right thing. I saved my brother. I kept my promise to that little boy on the playground. My life became a quiet, constant stream of pouring water into other people's leaky buckets. I was the reservoir, always ready, always full. But a reservoir needs to be refilled too, and that's what I never considered. I never thought about what would happen when my own bucket was empty. The turning point was Thomas, my steady, kind, quiet Thomas. He was the one thing in my life that wasn't chaotic, the one person who never asked for anything but my presence. And then, he got sick. It was sudden, a ruthless, fast-moving illness that blindsided us both. One day he was fixing a loose hinge on the back door, and the next, he was in the hospital, his gentle strength fading like a sunset. The medical bills were immediate and staggering. Even with insurance, the costs piled up, draining our savings instantly. The $5,000 I'd given Sarah for her photography dream, the years of low savings due to my mother's care, the financial strain from Mark's loan, it all came rushing back, not as a moral failing, but as a practical, terrifying hole in our safety net. We were completely vulnerable. I had to stop working to care for him. My savings were gone. I was physically and emotionally drowning. I needed help. I needed someone to take a shift at the hospital, someone to bring a prepared meal, someone, anyone, to ease the burden. I needed to make a withdrawal from the bank of love I thought I had built. I called Mark first. He was doing well now, a successful engineer, living in a beautiful suburban house. I explained the situation, my voice trembling, trying hard not to sound desperate. "Mark," I said, "I just need a week of evenings at the hospital, just to give me a few hours to catch my breath and run some errands. I'm just so exhausted." There was a long pause on the other end. I could hear the background noise of his happy, bustling family life. "Anna, you know I wish I could," he said, his voice laced with practiced regret. But you know the kids have their baseball season starting. And my job is insane right now. Deadlines. I just can't swing it. But I'll send you a casserole next week, okay? Tell Thomas I love him. A casserole. The substitute for presents, for time, for genuine sacrifice. I hung up the phone and the numbness started to set in. But I still had Sarah. My sister. The one I had literally given up my own roof money for. The one I had nursed through a broken heart. Surely she would understand. Surely she would be the one to show up. I dialed her number, feeling a knot of pure panic in my stomach. I was making myself vulnerable, a position I had never allowed myself to be in. I was asking, not giving. "Sarah, it's me," I started, my voice barely a whisper. "Thomas he's getting worse. The hospital stay is longer than expected. I need help, Sarah. I really, truly need help. Just a few hours a day. Could you possibly come down? Just for a few days. Maybe stay in the spare room. I just need someone to..." I trailed off, unable to articulate the depth of my need. I was asking for her time, the only thing I couldn't buy. And that's when she said it. The sentence that would redefine every relationship I had ever known. Her voice was calm, almost bored, not angry, not even guilty, just definitive. "Anna, I really can't right now. I have a huge photography exhibition coming up, and I'm swamped with editing. This is my big break, you know? I can't be distracted. Besides..." She paused, and then the words came out, crisp and clean like breaking glass. "Don't ask me for help." It felt dismissive. When you're drowning, being told you got this from the safety of the shore feels less like support and more like an insult. Sarah didn't call for 2 weeks. When she finally did, it wasn't about Thomas. "Anna, do you still have that large antique mirror in your dining room?" she asked, her voice bright and professional, as if she were calling about a business opportunity. I held the phone, momentarily speechless. "Yes, Sarah, I do." "Perfect. I need a prop for my exhibition next week. It's got that lovely patina. Do you think you could drop it off at my studio tomorrow? I'd pick it up, but the van is full of equipment." There was no mention of Thomas, no apology for her earlier coldness, just a simple request for a large, fragile item that she expected me to transport while caring for a critically ill husband. My exhaustion must have seeped into my voice. "Sarah, I can barely manage to leave the hospital for an hour. Thomas is very weak." She huffed, an impatient sound that instantly took me back to our childhood, when she didn't get her way. "Honestly, Anna, you always exaggerate things. It's a mirror. Just get Michael to help you. It's just an hour of your time. Don't be difficult." That was the breaking point, the small, seemingly trivial request that fractured the last piece of my old self. It wasn't the betrayal of money or time. It was the betrayal of empathy. She truly saw me only as a utility, not a person in crisis. "Sarah," I said, my voice quiet, dangerously so. "I think you need to find a different mirror." "What? Are you serious, Anna? After everything I've done for you?" she challenged, immediately twisting the narrative. The audacity stunned me. What had she done for me? She had allowed me to clean up her messes. "No, Sarah. After everything I've done for you," I corrected, my heart pounding, but my tone remaining steady and low. "The $5,000 for your studio, the 6 months I housed you after your divorce, the hours I spent watching Mom. Please, tell me, what have you done for me that required more than a 10-minute phone call?" The line went silent. I could hear her sharp intake of breath. The confrontation was terrifying, exhilarating. For the first time in my life, I wasn't being the dependable sister. I was being the honest one. She finally whispered, "You're being cruel, Anna, and selfish. You've changed." "No," I replied simply. "I haven't changed. I just ran out of things to give. And when I did, you showed me who you really are." I hung up the phone before she could respond. The silence that followed was sweet, absolute, and terrifyingly lonely. This confrontation, this quiet declaration of independence, didn't make my life easier. Thomas was still sick. The bills were still mounting. But internally, a crucial shift had occurred. I was no longer fighting for their approval or their affection. I was only fighting for Thomas and myself. I had finally realized that their lack of help wasn't a reflection of my worth, but a reflection of their character. My son, Michael, who was only 16 at the time, stepped up in ways his aunts and uncles never did. He was quiet, but he was present. He cooked simple meals, kept the house running, and never once complained about the abrupt change in his life. He was the only evidence I needed that my investment in love hadn't been a total failure. One evening, I found him sitting at the kitchen table, studying, but with a look of deep concentration on his face. "What's wrong, sweetie?" I asked, rubbing his tired shoulders. He looked up at me, his young eyes full of a wisdom that should not have belonged to a teenager. "Mom, why won't Aunt Sarah or Uncle Mark help? You always help them." It was the question of the year, asked with the simple, brutal honesty of a child. I sat down heavily next to him. "Sometimes, Michael, people only see what they can take from a relationship, not what they can put in. Your father and I, we taught them how to lean on us. We forgot to teach them how to be leaned upon." "So they're bad people?" he asked. "No, not bad," I corrected gently. "They're just short-sighted. They see a crisis and they hide. They've never had to be the rescuer, Michael. They've only ever been the rescued. And sometimes that kind of constant rescuing makes people weak, not grateful." I told him then that we would rely only on ourselves, that the greatest strength is found when you know your own 2 feet are all you have to stand on. It felt like a promise to him and a vow to myself. I started looking for ways to earn money from home. My long years at the library had given me excellent research and administrative skills. I found a few small freelance editing jobs online, typing reports, proofreading dissertations. I worked from Thomas's bedside, tapping quietly on my laptop while he slept, the rhythmic click of the keyboard a constant, quiet protest against my family's abandonment. The realization that I was entirely alone in this battle was, paradoxically, the start of my peace. I no longer had to wait for the phone to ring. I no longer had to justify my need. I no longer had to feel the sting of rejection, because I had cut the cord of expectation. The disappointment had done its terrible work, and now it was over. But the financial pressure was immense. Thomas needed specialized equipment at home, and the costs were astronomical. My small, steady income was barely keeping us afloat. One afternoon, a letter arrived. It was from the bank, official and cold. It was about the loan I had co-signed for Mark years ago. There was a problem. Mark had refinanced the loan with a new bank, consolidating his debts. He had never told me. And in the process, there had been a legal error in the paperwork regarding my co-signature. A loophole that meant, technically, I was still partially liable for a portion of the original debt that had been mishandled in the transfer. It was complicated, legal jargon that boiled down to one terrifying truth. I owed the bank $10,000 immediately, or faced serious legal repercussions that threatened the stability of our house, the only thing I had left to protect Thomas. This was the final blow. It wasn't just Sarah's lack of a mirror. It was Mark's legal negligence, a ghost from my past sacrifice coming back to haunt me at my lowest point. I had saved him, and now he was unknowingly ruining me. I called Mark, not with anger, but with a plea. "Mark, you need to call the bank. There's an issue with the old loan you refinanced. I'm being threatened with a $10,000 charge, and I simply don't have it. Thomas is..." He cut me off, instantly defensive. "Anna, that loan is years old. It's not my problem anymore. I paid it off. The bank must have messed up. That's your issue with the bank. I'm not getting dragged back into that drama." "But Mark, I'm being told it's directly related to the paperwork you signed," I insisted, my voice cracking slightly. "I have my own family to worry about, Anna," he said, his tone final and hard. "I can't spend my time sorting out a bank error from 5 years ago. I'm sorry about Thomas, but you need to call your own lawyer. Don't drag me into this." He hung up. Mark, the brother I had risked my home for, saw me not as a sister needing help, but as drama. The exhaustion was complete. I was entirely alone, facing an impossible financial crisis, and caring for a dying husband. I had emptied myself for them, and they had collectively turned their backs on me. The realization was no longer painful. It was now a foundation. I was utterly free from the expectation of family support, and that terrible freedom brought a cold, quiet strength. I had to save myself. I had to save Thomas, and I would, the bank's demand letter, lay on my kitchen table like a stone, a cold, unmoving fact. $10,000. It was a sum that, at any other time in my life, would have been a significant inconvenience. But now, with Thomas's medical expenses mounting and my income reduced to a few hours of freelance typing, it felt like a sentence. I reread the letter, not with the panic I had expected, but with a strange, numb clarity. Mark had made his position clear. Don't drag me into this drama. Sarah had already built her wall. Don't ask me for help. The message from my family was finally, unequivocally delivered, and in that quiet kitchen I accepted it. The exhaustion of hoping was finally over. The disappointment had done its worst, and now it was finished. I realized I had spent too long pleading for decency that simply wasn't there. Pleading was draining. Fighting, however, felt clean. I decided I wouldn't call Mark again. I wouldn't send a desperate email to Sarah. I would treat this problem, not as a family crisis, but as a complex administrative challenge. This was what my years at the library had prepared me for. I knew how to research, how to find the obscure detail, how to follow a paper trail until it led to the truth. I spent the next 3 days immersed in legal jargon and financial statutes. I printed out every document related to the old co-signed loan, Mark's refinancing, and the bank's official communications. I learned about the statute of limitations, escrow accounts, and the specific terms of an overlooked hold harmless clause. My world shrank to the glowing screen of my laptop and the quiet rhythmic breathing of Thomas in his hospital room. I worked from his side, only pausing to check his vitals or offer him sips of water. I didn't tell Thomas about the new bank crisis. He had enough to fight without worrying about our roof. This was my battle now. A quiet war waged against paperwork and abandonment. My first break came when I contacted an old colleague from the library, a woman named Eleanor who had retired to study law. I didn't ask her for a lawyer. I asked her for advice on where to look, for pro bono financial aid resources for caregivers. She listened to my brief, emotionless summary of the situation. I focused on the facts, the loan, the co-signature, the error. I omitted the pain of my siblings' betrayal. Eleanor was direct. Anna, you're not looking for aid. You're looking for leverage. Mark transferred the principal debt, which should have nullified the co-signature. The bank is being lazy or predatory. You need to find a lawyer who is willing to write a single, strongly worded letter pointing out the flaw in their paperwork. She gave me the name of a legal aid clinic that specialized in consumer debt issues. I called them immediately, preparing my concise, factual narrative. I spoke to a young, earnest lawyer named Michael, ironically, the same name as my son. I sent him the stack of documents. A few days later, Michael the lawyer called me back. Mrs. Wilson, he said, his voice impressed. Your organizational skills are phenomenal. You flagged the exact clause we need. Mark's refinancing paperwork didn't correctly account for the cosigner release on the original agreement. The bank made an administrative error. You are not liable. Relief washed over me, not as a flood, but as a slow, steady tide. It wasn't just the money, it was the validation. I had been right. I had saved my family, myself and Thomas, by relying on my own quiet, overlooked skills, the skills they had always taken for granted. I leaned against the hospital wall, the phone pressed to my ear. What do I need to do now? Nothing, Mrs. Wilson. We are sending a demand letter to the bank's legal department this afternoon. This issue will be resolved within the week. That evening, I finally allowed myself to tell Thomas. He was lucid and sitting up sipping clear broth. I had a small problem with the bank, sweetheart, I said, keeping my voice light. A mistake from Mark's old loan came up. It was $10,000, but I fixed it. I used my library skills and found a nice young lawyer. It's handled. Thomas looked at me, his eyes full of love, and also a deep, familiar sorrow. And your brother? I didn't ask him for help, Thomas, I said, meeting his gaze. I called him to inform him of the error, and he told me to call my own lawyer. So I did. The difference is, my lawyer actually helped me. Thomas didn't speak for a minute. He just reached out, took my hand, and brought it to his lips. You are the strongest person I have ever known, Anna, and you are finally learning to save yourself first. That was the turning point. It wasn't the bank being defeated. It was the realization that Thomas saw my strength, and that his approval was the only currency that mattered. My sister and brother's abandonment had done something terrible to my emotional life, but it had done something essential to my character. It had forced me to find my own center. The next day, I made 2 final, deliberate phone calls. I knew the bank issue was resolved, but I needed to close the door on the relationship, not with a slam, but with a quiet, final click. I called Mark first. He answered on the 3rd ring, sounding rushed. Anna, look, I'm in a meeting. Did you sort out that bank thing? Yes, Mark, it's sorted, I said, my tone completely devoid of emotion. The bank made an administrative error when you refinanced the loan. It was related to your original co-signature. I contacted a legal aid clinic, and they handled it. I'm no longer liable. He let out a loud, relieved exhale. See? I knew it was just a technicality. Good. Glad that's over. I paused. I didn't want to accuse him. I just wanted him to hear the facts of his inaction. Mark, I wanted you to know that when I called you, I was absolutely desperate. Thomas is critically ill, and I had no money left. I risked losing the house. I told you I was sorry about Thomas, Anna, but I really can't be responsible for old paperwork drama, he insisted, his voice hardening, choosing to view my honest pain as an attempt to blame him. You're right, Mark, I said, the words heavy with finality. You are not responsible. I just want you to understand that you are no longer the little brother I was willing to risk everything for. That debt has been paid in full, and then some. Consider our contract complete. He stammered. Anna, wait, what are you talking about? Are you mad at me? No, Mark, I said, my voice calm, almost meditative. I'm not mad, I'm just finished. Please don't call me about anything unless it is about Thomas. Goodbye. The call to Sarah was shorter and even colder. She was preparing for her exhibition and sounding stressed. Anna, did you call about the mirror again? I told you. I found a different one. It's fine. No, Sarah. I called to tell you that Thomas is moving to home hospice next week. We're preparing the house. I just wanted you to know. She immediately launched into her own drama. Oh, that's terrible. But you know my exhibition is this Friday. It's my opening night, the culmination of everything. I really can't leave the city this week. It's just impossible. This time the excuse didn't hurt. It just sounded small. Sarah, I said softly, you don't have to worry. I'm not asking you to come. I don't need you to bring a meal or take a shift or help with the equipment. I have it handled. Michael and Thomas's friends are helping. I just wanted you to have the information. Oh, she said, her voice dropping, clearly registering the distance in my tone. Well, that's good, Anna. Thanks for the update. Sarah, I said, right before hanging up, making sure the full weight of the memory was delivered. I want you to remember that when I needed help, when Thomas needed me, and I needed you, you said, don't ask me for help. You were right. I won't. I hung up the phone. My hands weren't shaking. My eyes were dry. The feeling was not victory, but an immense, quiet, settled peace. The peace that comes when you finally stop fighting a battle that was never worth winning. The battle for their love. I had risked everything for my siblings, and they had risked nothing for me. But in their refusal to help, they had given me a gift, the gift of relying on my true self. The gift of knowing that the greatest strength is found in self-sufficiency. I was alone, but I was not weak. I was isolated, but I was not defeated. I was ready to bring Thomas home. The day we brought Thomas home was quiet and sacred. It wasn't the triumphant return I had always hoped for, but it was the right one. The scent of our home, cinnamon and old wood, replaced the sterile, clinical smell of the hospital. The sounds of birds outside replaced the insistent beeping of machines. He was finally back where he belonged. Bringing him home required lifting and movement, tasks that were too much for me alone. I didn't call Mark or Sarah. Instead, I called the gentlemen from Thomas's carpentry workshop, his friends. They came silently, efficiently, and with immense respect. They set up the hospice bed in the living room, ensuring Thomas had the best view of the garden outside the window. They didn't ask questions about my family. They just offered their calloused hands, and their uncomplicated kindness, Michael, was my steady hand through it all. My 16-year-old son became a man overnight, not in a loud, dramatic way, but in the small, profound gestures of daily life. He learned to monitor Thomas's medication schedule. He learned to speak softly and move slowly. He cooked meals that were simple and nourishing. He never asked to go out, never complained about the oppressive quiet that had settled over our house. One evening, I found him polishing the wooden frame of the bed Thomas was lying in. He was focused, his movements careful. "What are you doing, sweetie?" I whispered. "Dad taught me," he said, not looking up. "He said you always treat the wood you work with like it's already precious, even if it's new." "I'm just making sure this wood knows he's precious, Mom." In that moment, I realized that the love I had poured into my small, immediate family, into Thomas and into Michael, was not wasted. It had created something solid, something self-sustaining. My siblings had taught me the sting of abandonment, but my son was teaching me the quiet, fierce power of loyalty. The next few weeks passed in a haze of profound intimacy. The world outside our living room felt distant, irrelevant. I stopped checking my email obsessively. I ignored the brief, tentative text messages from Sarah asking, "How is he?" I didn't need to answer them. Their concern felt too little, too late, and entirely conditional. The energy I would have spent nurturing those broken relationships, I now spent entirely on Thomas. And in doing so, I felt myself being refilled. We talked for hours in those final days. Not about the past hurts, but about the good things. We talked about the day we met, the laughter we shared, the simple joy of watching Michael grow up. One afternoon, Thomas took my hand, his grip surprisingly firm. He was fully alert, his eyes clear and focused. "Anna," he said, his voice soft, almost a breath. "You know I always worried about your sister and brother." I nodded, gently stroking his cheek. "I know, my love. You confused your strength for their need. You thought that if you stopped being the giver, you wouldn't be loved. And when they proved you right, you broke. But that brokenness, Anna..." He paused, searching for the right words. "That brokenness freed you." I knew what he meant. The betrayal had ripped away the illusion that I needed their validation to be a good person. Their indifference was the final devastating gift. It forced me to see that my integrity was entirely my own. "I let go of them, Thomas," I confessed, tears finally stinging my eyes, but not falling. I finally let go. I stopped trying to make them see what they had lost. It felt selfish, but it was necessary. "It's not selfish, Anna," he whispered. "It's self-preservation. You can't forgive people who don't ask for it, and you can't heal wounds they refuse to acknowledge. Your task is to forgive yourself for investing in them, and then you move forward." He taught me the deepest lesson of those lonely weeks. Forgiveness wasn't something you extended to others. It was something you granted to yourself for the mistake of believing in their goodness. It was about accepting the cost of the lesson and refusing to pay it again. In the final hours, Michael and I sat on either side of him. We held his hands and told him everything we loved about him. His quiet humor, his patient hands, the steady light he had been in our chaotic family landscape. I recited old poems I'd memorized from my library days. Michael just held his father's hand, his shoulders shaking quietly. Thomas looked up at me one last time, his eyes shimmering with love. He didn't say anything grand. He just smiled, a gentle, tired smile, and whispered 2 words that were enough for a lifetime. "My Anna." And then he was gone. The grief that followed was immense, a heavy, suffocating blanket. But it was pure grief, untainted by the bitterness of abandonment. I was sad because my great love was gone, not because I was left alone to deal with the funeral arrangements. Handled the funeral ourselves. Michael helped me choose the simple, Beautiful wooden coffin Thomas would have appreciated. We held the service in the backyard, under the old maple tree Thomas had planted when Michael was born. His friends from the workshop came, quiet and respectful. Neither Mark nor Sarah attended. Mark sent a perfunctory text message the morning of the service. "Thinking of you today. Tell Michael I'm sorry I can't make it." No flowers, no phone call, just the easy escape of a text. Sarah sent a large bouquet of exotic, vibrant lilies, the kind that demanded attention, to the funeral home, addressed only to Thomas. Not to Anna, not to Michael. It was a final stunning act of performing, grief without possessing any genuine empathy for the living. It was her art, her dramatic gesture, utterly divorced from the real, quiet suffering we had endured. I looked at the lilies, at Mark's text, and felt nothing. No anger, no pain. Just the profound emptiness of a space I had finally stopped trying to fill. They were gone from my life, not because I had chosen to hate them, but because they had chosen to be absent when it truly mattered. Their absence was not a void in my life. It was a firm border, protecting the small, precious unit that remained. Michael and I stood together as Thomas's friends lowered the coffin. It was a simple, perfect goodbye. Afterward, as the sun began to set, casting long, peaceful shadows across the garden, Michael came to me. He had been quiet all day, his grief contained and internal, just like his father's. "I'm glad they didn't come, Mom," he said, his voice husky. "It would have just been another performance. Dad deserved peace. He got it, sweetie," I said, pulling him close. He got the quiet, honest peace he always deserved. The months that followed Thomas's death were the quietest of my life. There was the heavy stillness of grief, of course, but underneath that sorrow, there was an unexpected sense of freedom. The relentless, draining energy I had spent on managing my siblings' chaos was finally mine again. I went back to work at the library part-time, keeping my freelance editing jobs going. The money was steady, the bills were manageable, and the house was secure. I had done it. I had saved my home and my peace without a single ounce of assistance from the family. I had given everything to. I realized that for years, my identity had been rooted in my role as the helper, the savior, the reliable older sister. When that role was ripped away, I thought I would be lost. Instead, I found Anna, the resourceful, steady woman Thomas had always seen. The woman who could research a legal loophole, run a household, and raise a kind, empathetic son. I never spoke to Mark or Sarah again after the funeral. Not out of spite, but out of necessity. They tried briefly. A few more texts from Mark asking about insurance. A couple of emails from Sarah mentioning her photography successes. I read them, but I didn't reply. They were attempts to reconnect with the old Anna, the one who would still listen and solve their problems. But she was gone. I didn't hate them. Hate is a consuming emotion that requires energy I no longer possessed. My feeling was simpler, cleaner. I had moved past them. They were people who had shown me their limitations, and I respected those limits by no longer entering their boundary of indifference. The door wasn't locked. It was simply closed, and I had walked away. My life with Michael became one of quiet strength. We talked more, deeply and honestly. We laughed again, finding the small, absurd pockets of joy that Thomas had always appreciated. We were a small, self-contained unit, and our loyalty to each other was absolute. That was the real family I had built. The moral of this story is a quiet one. It's not about revenge or even about dramatic reconciliation. It's about realizing where your treasure lies. I had spent 40 years banking love in the wrong accounts, depositing my soul into people who were spiritually bankrupt. The greatest betrayal was not their refusal to help me. The greatest betrayal was my own refusal to help myself, to guard my energy, and to recognize my own worth outside of my usefulness to others. When my own sister told me, "Don't ask me for help," it didn't ruin me. It saved me. It was the final push I needed to fall back. Not on them, but onto my own, newly discovered foundation. If you are the fixer, the reliable one, the one who always pours out for others, I offer you this quiet lesson. Your strength is not infinite. Your well needs to be replenished. And when you finally need a drink, look for the people who show up. Not the people you had to beg. They are often not who you think they are. I learned that self-care isn't about spa days. It's about setting boundaries that protect your peace. And that quiet peace, the one I finally found when I let go of the people who didn't value me, is the greatest comfort of all. It is the legacy Thomas left me. I am Anna. I was used. I was abandoned. But I am here, and I am whole. And that is enough.